Hello and welcome to Bags of Action. My name is Steve and this is a 5-minute review of Beyond Skyline from 2017. The film is directed and written by Liam O'Donnell, and what I didn't know until later on, this is actually a sequel or sidequel to another film called Skyline that came out in 2010, which was also co-written by Liam O'Donnell. The film stars Frank Grillo in the lead. It also has some interesting actors been thrown into the mix there. You've got Antonio Vargas, you've got Jacob Vargas, and you've got Iko Uwais, who's most well known for his martial arts prowess. So what is the film actually about? A light descends on a city in America and a bunch of alien spaceships start showing up, and when people look into the light, they immediately feel compelled to walk towards it, and once they're out in the street, they get sucked up into this spaceship, and people are being abducted all over. Attempts to fight back with the military seem to have failed, and this one spaceship keeps moving from city to city, dragging up lots and lots of people, but we don't really know the reason why. And then all of the alien troopers are marching all over the city, blowing things up. Other things come down into the street. They're almost like kaiju because they're much larger than people and seem to be pretty much invulnerable. Frank Grillo ends up with a bunch of characters that he's met by accident on the subway train with his son. They're coming back from the police station. We get a bit of character development at the start of the film. Then what happens is a bit of duck and run as they're running from one thing to another, trying to escape the aliens. They fight back a little bit and seem to beat one of the foot soldiers, only for it to start regenerating, but we don't really know the reason why to begin with. The film takes some strange and quite brutal turns as Frank and his son eventually get abducted and taken up into a large spaceship, and then we suddenly jump when they're kicked out and we end up in Vietnam, and we get this whole other aspect of the film with the resistance fighting back, and we get to see some martial arts and all this kind of stuff, and it's quite interesting and entertaining. But one thing I really didn't expect is this film is a lot more brutal than most science fiction films. On some level, I thought this was going to be a cheap second-hand knockoff version of Independence Day with funny one-liners and, silly jokes as they fight back against the aliens. But actually, it turns out to be quite hardcore because what they're doing to humans who are abducted is really nasty. The action scenes when we get them fighting against individuals and groups of people is there again really not pleasant at all. Humans are torn apart, limbs ripped off and all of this kind of stuff. So when they begin to fight back with some kind of weapons doing hand to hand, equally the damage done to the aliens is also as nasty and as vicious. The pace of the film is fairly relentless, so there isn't a lot of time for character development. They try to do their best, but it almost seems like they don't want to dwell too long on the film so that you get bored. And so there's a lot of action all the way through. There's fight scenes, and there'll be a quiet moment, then there'll be another fight scene. And that's more or less the whole structure of the film. There is also the underlying mystery and why did the aliens arrive? How come they seem to be so invulnerable? Why do they keep regenerating? And what are they doing with the humans who are being abducted? And all of the answers are given in this film. It's quite good at that. It doesn't tease you until the last minute. On some level, whilst watching this film, I knew that eventually the humans were going to win, and that I was pretty sure that Frank Grillo's character was going to survive because he was the lead actor and the biggest name on the poster. However, how they got there and that the fact that a large number of other members of the cast died along the way made it a little bit unpredictable. If you go into this film knowing that not the best thing you've ever seen, but that it's going to be a lot of fun with a great deal of action, then it's a really enjoyable film because I've mentioned the pace is quite relentless, so you're not sitting around having a 20-minute conversation about the science of how they're going to beat the aliens. There's no quirky one-liners, there's no buddy cop thing, although you get a little bit between that of two of the main lead actors. The biggest mystery for me is why this film exists. Not because that it wasn't fun, but it came 7 years after Skyline, and it's got the same writer, but I don't know why it's here. I can't compare it to Skyline and say if the story is the same, but from reading the premise, it seems to exist almost in parallel with a ship coming over Chicago, people being abducted, and a bunch of humans fighting back in a rebellion. A quick search on Wikipedia shows that despite Skyline receiving negative reviews, it made its money on a budget of $10 million. It made nearly $68 million, and that a third film is currently being planned to wrap up the franchise, because Beyond Skyline ends on a sort of cliffhanger with hooks of how you could continue telling the story. So it seems like they want to wrap it up. So maybe it was just a cult classic, and it's one of these things where the critics hated it but the audience liked it because it was just a bit of good fun. So it's not the best science fiction film I've seen, but it was entertaining. It was a film I wasn't bored and waiting for it to end. It's also got quite a lean runtime. Frank Grillo is really good in the lead opposite Uwais, and they make a good pair. So for all of those reasons, I'm going to give Beyond Skyline 2 out of 5 and say it's definitely worth a watch, and maybe I'll have to go back and watch the original now to see how it compares and what the differences might be, and if it fed into this film in some way, which will also then set it up for the third film in the franchise. So, have you seen Beyond Skyline? If so, get in touch and let me know. Have you seen the original Skyline film, and are you a fan of this franchise? You can get in touch with us in all of the usual ways, via email, join the Facebook group, and don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. We have new episodes coming out weekly, as well as longer episodes posted twice a month. Thanks for listening.